Hello, Paul Marchant of Artis. We're a rubber development laboratory and test laboratory. Referring to the fuel sealing presentation, what I can say is we've done some work of our own with the effects of seals in biofuel, and I can back up the findings of the study that you presented there. But we didn't look at the effects when water are present. But without water, the FKM materials are very relatively stable in that environment. We've also extended it though to look at some of the older technology really for fuel seals and in that area, and some of those materials can be more vulnerable to the effects of biofuel, especially at higher concentrations, because what can start happening is the biofuel can start pulling out the oils that the compounder might actually put in the material. So there may be a need if people have older engines to review the sealing technology with their manufacturers in an older engine. So I don't think it presents an issue to a newer engine, but a very old engine it could be quite an issue.
Okay, thank you. Further bad news. Is there any good news? Okay, gentleman at the front.
One of the big problems with it is, in fact, if there's been cured with metal oxides. Also, the water swelling very much depends whether it's fresh water or salinity. Okay, but with low biofuel contents, and 7% is a fairly low biofuel content, okay, the swelling effect is not quite as drastic as indicated there, where it's a much higher biofuel. So that's the good news. Okay, we're going on to what Rita was saying about copper piping. Again, you're using low biofuel content. It doesn't strip copper out that fast, and so it's not something where you would have to change out all your copper piping immediately. It can be on a routine maintenance, maybe 1, even 2, 3 years down the line. If it was an ethanolic fuel, yeah, and a high ethanolic fuel, then yes, change your copper piping out. But with the biodiesels, no. It doesn't actually, it takes a long time to degrade and strip out copper. And I've worked with biofuels now for nigh on 16 years, so on that, rest assured, it's not a matter of urgency. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you very much for that. That perhaps is some good news. So very reassuring. Good to hear that other seal manufacturers or the rubber or material suppliers are also looking. I was fascinated to hear that the swelling effect when there is water contamination depends whether it's fresh or saline water. Of course, we really hope to keep saline water out of our fuel tanks. The days of our frigates as saltwater compensated fuel tanks have long gone. Thank goodness, said the engineer. Could I ask, sir, is the effect worse with fresh or with saline?
With saline, it's worse.
Good. So it's less bad with fresh water, and of course the condensation that gives us our initial concerns. Every tank you can end up with condensation in. That's going to be fresh water because it's air that drops out of the atmosphere. The information about copper piping is also useful in that we are here, even though we're going from effectively 0 biofuel content up to 7%. That is considered by the fuels industry and those who've been involved with this so far as a low biofuel content. So it's very reassuring. I know that on our own vessels we don't tend to use copper piping, we use stainless steel piping. But except for the heaters that we use for cabin heaters. But these are the Eberspacher type heaters that are typically used on trucks. and they've been using ultra-low sulfur, and they have, you know, we don't see trucks with their heaters not working. I think the truckers would have a word about that. So that's very reassuring, and thank you very much for that.
Okay, thank you. Now there's a gentleman with the microphone. I'd like to hear a contribution from him, and then the gentleman the next row down with the yellow tie. So please.
Of course, the lubricity additive itself is actually another source of microbiological contamination, but that is a different matter. As far as the actual lubricity is concerned, strip out the sulfur, you have a problem. And so when they first developed low sulfur road fuels, they had to address that problem. So the lubricity problem has been addressed.
Okay, thank you very much. And now you, sir.
Paul Falston, formerly Director of Product Planning and Regulatory Affairs with Cummins Engine Company. On Rita's last presentation, I believe that the last representation of the problems that were likely to occur have been perhaps misrepresented by the suppliers to her. I was involved in various projects in the late 90s, one of them being a desire by British Airports Authority to switch to 50 ppm red diesel, and I'd say it was bizarrely named because one of the operators affected was Pink Elephant Parking, and the project was red green diesel and the Pink Elephant Parking affair. Now, we hit issues highlighted by the previous poster, the previous contributor there, that the oil industry has come an awful long way with regard to additives. And the picture we faced in 1997 was totally different to now. The oil industry has moved very, very quickly to accommodate the lack of lubricity. So after about a year of sorting out various problems, mainly with older vehicles that operated within the confines of the airport, and the issues with the storage of the fuel, we actually nailed the problem within a year. And so British Airports Authority has been coping with the problem, not necessarily with the added bio content, but with the low sulfur equivalent without any problem. So in other words, from about 2000, they have seen zero issues. So I think we need to acknowledge that the problems are perhaps not as great as being presented.
Okay.
Good husbandry.
Thank you very much. I've got a hand up over there, another gentleman with the yellow tie.
Let me introduce myself. I'm Roger McNair, and I head up a company by the name of Fuel Harmonics. We have the European license for a US product by the name of a Fitch fuel catalyst. On my introduction, the Fitch fuel catalyst kills and eliminates fuel, algae, bacteria completely on contact. It increases lubricity within the engine. It reduces emissions. It reduces fuel consumption by in the region of 5%. The units are warranted to 10,000 working hours, covered by a £10 million product liability, US Coast Guard approved, EPA certified, and Lloyd's certified on the Aurora cruise ship, which we fitted. We're members of the Low Carbon Vehicle Partnership, BMF, FTA, and RHA. And my question is currently, what joint investigations are being conducted on technologies designed to combat the negative effects of biofuels?
Okay, well, thanks for the commercial break and the question at the end of it. Does anyone have an answer to that? Yes.
Thank you.
I have, I heard of the Fitch systems, the catalysts that are put in, and there's another company represented here who we've been talking to, who I think you work with, particularly in the maritime sector. We are intending to undertake a trial. When I say we, that's me, the Port of London Authority. We have a vessel that we can trial these on, and it is our intention to run a trial. Now, that's not going to be terribly scientific, but I think that the company represented, most who are here, have actually got a trial engine, and maybe you'd be able to talk to them, or other people would be able to talk to them later today. That's the ideal thing about today, is that we can get together and talk about these things. Thank you very much.
Okay, there's a gentleman on the aisle who's got his arm up, who's been waiting a long time.
I'm Tim Hadland. I'm from MTU in the UK. We'd kind of like that to be Paxman, but that's another story. Okay, so this is relatively new to me. It's obviously very much a chemists and biologists problem. They've got a big role to play in this. The copper thing's a new thing. I didn't realise that. And the gentleman's already answered one of my questions over there about the fact that there is alternatives to sulphur, alternative additives. I don't understand the mechanism of the sulphur lubrication in detail, I'm afraid, but I'd like to know more about that. I do wonder if anyone's looked at the temperature stability of these fuels, different gel points, for example, low temperatures in some vessels where they haven't got tank heating. High pressures, we're looking at MTU engines with fuel rail pressures, they're up to 1800 bar. Do these biofuels polymerize or something of that nature at these high pressures and then clog your fuel filters? Do wonder if Rita, your company's looked at products that might be available from Alfa Laval for your fuel treatment, any retrofittable solutions to existing vessels. From my personal experience as far as biofuels is concerned, really is at the moment mainly to do with road vehicles and my own Land Rover. I ran it on some vegetable oil until the price went through the roof, unfortunately, so I stopped doing that. But I used to go on a fuel forum on the internet, and there's people there, mostly in the US, they're using 100% homemade biodiesel in a lot of vehicles, and there's an awful lot of experience and knowledge there, which I think can be tapped as long as you can be bothered to filter through it. So that's what I have to add now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And another lady here in the front.
Anna Wise, Marina Developments Limited. It's a rather boring question on timings, because you mentioned that the DFT have yet to define the issue about coastal waters, which is obviously quite a big issue. Have you got any more information on their timescale? Is it worth us lobbying, and presumably is it as shipping minister we should be lobbying? And a secondary question is, we also supply petrol on both our coastal and inland fuel pontoons, and is there a similar change taking place to petrol, or is that all the same as cars and pretty much an issue not to worry about?
Well, I'll take the first point of lobbying. Please lobby hard between now and Friday. I'm not the conveyor of good news in this regard. I mean, the industry, the opening of their eyes, if you like, to the effect of on us in the maritime sector, as David said in his introduction, was very much appreciated, and they really do realise that they've fouled up. They'd just not realised the significance of the difference between a land use, where predominantly the fuel is stored for a relatively short period of time in your farm or whatever, and then used, and the maritime sector, where very often it can be either in a storage tank, as we have, and many other ports and operators have, or indeed in the passenger and the leisure market, let's not forget, where the fuel is bought in the autumn to keep the tanks full over the winter, keep the condensation down, and then the vessel is used in, let's say, May, when it gets a bit warmer and more pleasant. So that's one thing. Lobbying, I fear, is we shouldn't not do it, but I think the point that we need to make with the shipping minister and his civil servants is the point of implementation within a very short period of time, and that was Rita's point. The other thing is that we should be aware that this covers operations only on inland waters. So coastal shipping, they're definitely at sea. Once you go outside, there is no way that the definition of inland waters could be extended to include the coastal waters, because they're already outside the category D waters as defined by the MCA. It's really a question of where can we bring the boundary in, if it's advantageous to us to get through this, particularly this initial phase. So that's really answering your question there. The second question is, does this apply to gasoline engines? This directive does not. However, we didn't hear about this one until June when the British, the Passenger Boat Association and various others heard about it and started pestering. That is a question that we will ask. We've got this meeting on Friday, and I'll make a note to ask that question, and we'll try and feed that back. Okay. Maybe afterwards, if people have got particular interests, then come and grab me, give me a business card with your question written on the back, and I will then put those to the civil servants who have been very helpful, and we'll then try and get the reassurance back to you as quickly as we can. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Alan. I think we've got time for one more question. Gentleman very patiently holding his hand up.
Yes, good morning. Gerald King from Taylor Fuel Control. I'd just like to let everyone sort of know my sort of 25, 30 years experience, as young as I am, in this sort of sector of quality. I'd just like to warn everybody here that there are many biofuel manufacturers up and down the country, some good, some bad, some very bad, selling biofuels to many suppliers. Please be aware, everyone, that there are varying differences in quality, and the quality of the fuel coming into your vessels and the good housekeeping that Mrs. Beckwith was mentioning earlier on is the most important thing, because the two do not go together very well with marine craft. These bio companies that are setting up and going broke all over the country, trying to make a fast buck and selling bio products of not good quality to fuel suppliers around the country is becoming an issue. You've only got to look at the auction networks in this country to see the 5 or 6 biodiesel manufacturers going broke, proving a point. The quality of biofuels and fuels in general need to be at the top of your list. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. I'm just going to take one more question. There's a gentleman on the far side.
Thank you. I'd just like to respond to the point the gentleman made just a moment ago. It will be irrelevant with regards to local biodiesel supplies in the UK because the majors won't be buying from them. The source of biodiesel predominantly comes from Germany, and their demise over the last year was due to the 20p duty offset that the government took away, which meant that the biodiesel producers in the UK couldn't make money, so that's why they've fallen by the wayside. But you won't find this low quality biofuel in your gas oil because it will be supplied through sources predominantly in Germany in the fuel.
Okay, that's very helpful. End of questions now. Rita's got a point she wants to make before we break for coffee.
Yes.
Try this one.
Yeah, I just wanted to actually come back to our gentleman from Cummings, ex-Cummings here that spoke. I think the point that I was trying to make, whatever I said, whether I was led to inaccurate information, this is the information that we're getting as an industry, and it's conflicting. It's not clear. There's not a clear road through this for us. Some people say one thing, some people say another. And when you bear in mind that most operators do not have expertise that can look at the legislation, I myself have spent many hours, and colleagues have spent many hours reading the stuff, and others can't do that. They haven't got the number of people, they haven't got the man hours, they haven't got the ability to digest this sort of thing. Neither can they leave their businesses and come here today. So disseminating this information to them is really difficult. But we are getting conflicting reports and conflicting concerns. I think my particular concern really comes down to, okay, we can make the engines work, it's going to be more expensive, whatever we have to do, but we have to live with that or somehow get over that. But it's the supply chain that really worries me. From all that I've read and heard, we want low sulfur gas oil or sulfur free gas oil as a preference. That's what I've looked at and thought that that is what whatever I've read is telling me, because the biofuels have the ability to cause us more complications. Now we don't know whether we're going to be able to get a biofuel supply. We don't know at what level the biofuels will be. We don't even know whether the low sulfur or the sulfur-free gas oil will be available anywhere. So they're the issues with 9 weeks to go that we have to know that we can get a supply. With 14 craft, we can't take our craft to anywhere. We have to have a supply in central London, and most of it is delivered by tanker, by river tanker. Our suppliers don't even know what they're going to do. And these are real issues for us. Now, unless somebody can sort those out, we have a real problem on the 1st of January 2011. And I would like solutions. I also need people to look at, if our industry has been very unfairly dealt with in the way that it's happened. And in order for this thing to be dealt with properly, and I think we are professional people, we are professional boat operators. We have quite a large organisation and colleagues who have large organisations in London. And we are not acting professionally by going about what we're trying to do. With the short weeks left, we should not be in this position. And somebody actually needs to say, hey, if we can get categorised as Category C waters, the tidal waters can be exempt from this implementation now. I'm sure at some time in the future it will be implemented, whatever category you're in, if you're working inside a port or something. But we need to buy some time, because as an industry, we are, I'm told I've got conflicting information. I've got somebody over there said I can add some additives. I've got somebody else telling me I can't get a supply. Yes, you can get a supply. You don't know whether it's good biofuel or bad biofuel. Be careful about the quality. What are we doing? What are we doing? Somebody needs to do something about it now. I wish the Department of Transport were here to actually hear things that are being said. And I think we're being videoed and recorded. Could you please send a video, a DVD, to the Department of Transport tomorrow and ask them to listen to what has happened here? Because we need to do something that does not destroy the lives of some people. If they can't operate their boats, they haven't got a business, they haven't got employment for people. I'm frightened, I'm worried, because I don't know that everything we can do will happen on the 1st of January. And also it's in the children's holidays, right? It's like the changeover of VAT, isn't it? Put your VAT up on the 1st of January after you've been operating on December the 31st. These things are not, it's not enough time to do this properly. And that's all I will say.
Thank you very much.